Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri, and our next guest is easily one of the funniest writers and actresses around. You've seen her in Happy Endings, Gone Girl, Black Monday, and now you can see Casey Wilson in the HBO comedy Mrs. Fletcher. Let's take a look.
So you remember last year he had that pinched nerve in his neck. And he goes to that tacky massage place, Solar Glow.
Right.
But then his neck got better and he kept going. And so I just asked him about it.
Oh, no. Okay.
And I really didn't want to, but I did. Okay. And he just told me. He told me everything.
Everybody, please welcome Casey Wilson. Hey.
Hi, uplifting clip.
But within a funny show, at times, your character is funny at times, right? Actually, it's more of a downbeat character than I think you normally play.
No, it absolutely is. Normally I'm like tripping and falling. It's, the show is definitely a little more more serious.
Yeah. How did that happen? Did you audition for it? Did they know of your work?
Yes, I auditioned for it definitely, and I really wanted to work with Catherine, and I have done so much just comedy, and I was excited to try to do, something a little more serious, and it was a great experience.
Was it difficult for you to do something serious? I mean, I've always found you to be, there are great comedians, and then there are just like great actresses who happen to be doing comedy a lot of the time, and you can kind of see within the comedy a good actress, and I know that you came up doing comedy, but were you nervous doing drama, or was it something that's kind of always been a part of you and you know how to do?
Well, thank you for saying that. But I think I went to school for acting, and if anyone goes to school for acting, I feel like you think you're just going to be like doing Chekhov on Broadway your whole life, and it's like, well, you're not even going to go to Broadway. And second, you just kind of fall into, I think, where your strengths are, or at least I did, and I love comedy and kind of got into the kind of sketch world, but I always...
Your people are too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I always just considered myself always though an actress, and so I do appreciate you saying that. But at this point in my career, I'm kind of like, oh, I've definitely gone, I don't want to say far afield, but I think, I love acting and getting to do different things. And sometimes in our business, you kind of lucky enough to be able to do anything, but you get a little bit.
Is it difficult for you having straddled the dramatic world or been in the dramatic world in acting school and then worked in comedy for so long, when you come back into the dramatic world, you're around dramatic actors and not comedians, which I think is a different approach to the work in some ways?
My God, yes. Like being on a set with comedians, I was thinking about on Happy Endings, like Adam Pally, my friend, was always...
It's nothing, seriously.
Nothing.
Yeah.
He was always stealing the boom mic, and like he concussed me once with it, just like lowering it slowly into like my face during it, just like a very different atmosphere than with serious actors who are, take the craft seriously.
Well, Catherine is somewhere in between as well.
She 100% is. I mean, Catherine Hahn can do anything.
Yes.
To the point where you would watch, Bad Moms, and then Mrs. Fletcher, and it's almost incomprehensible. It's the same person.
Yeah.
That's how she's just an idol of mine in that way.
Does she approach the work differently between the two, or is it the same sort of person who's going about the scenes?
I don't know how she approached the male waxing scene in Bad Moms. No, I think she has, she, went to Yale Drama School, and I don't want to speak for her, but she has such an intense craft that, is so admirable. And if anything, I walked away from the experience thinking it was so great to kind of drop in. And by the way, I think all really talented comedians are great actors. And so I don't think there's as much of a difference, but there's, a lightness. Sometimes Catherine is the lightest person on earth, but I'm just saying in general, comedians like to just joke around the entire time.
Yeah, you're not dealing with, Catherine Hahn is an amazing actress, but you're not dealing with like a Joaquin style thing.
It was not Daniel Day-Lewis, and she wasn't cobbling on the side.
So that's a little bit different, but...
Obscure reference, he
became a cobbler for like 10 years.
Became a cobbler for his role in... something?
Wait, did he do it for a role, or did he do... I thought he just did it.
Oh, the cobbling was just for a hobby.
Yeah.
You're right.
Like, I thought for like 5 years, he's like, I'm not going to act, I'm going to be a cobbler.
You're right, I forgot he just took a stint as a cobbler. And then on the side, he was doing,
Gotta respect it.
Gotta respect, oh God, I respect it so much.
Yeah. I was listening to something over the weekend where they were talking about, it was a Marin episode, and they were talking about how they always respect when someone just drops out of entertainment completely.
Nothing I respect more.
Really?
Oh my God. Yes. I mean, in anyone's life when you're just like, you've had it, but And I, you know, it's a hard business. I know, obviously from the outside, it can be like, oh, okay. But it's a tough business.
It's a freelance business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of at its core, people are saying like, no. And to you, not like to anything surrounding you, like, no, to
You're
you.
only doing interviews. You're only talking to people about the things that they said yes for.
Yeah, exactly.
So no one really knows that
Yeah.
prior to this yes,
Yeah.
there may have
Guys,
been.
this represents 100 no's. Let me
Yeah.
tell you. But I think when anyone moves on, I'm always kind of like, good for them. You know, they kind of, I think a lot of us would probably move on if there was anything else I could do. If I could cobble, I would cobble shoes.
I think there's different approaches to the business. I don't know how to
Yeah.
better way to put it, which is the dragon chasing version of it, which is always looking for greater and more success, and the version of it that I feel like you and your sort of compatriots have carved out for yourselves, which is sort of like finding the things that work for you, really enjoying working together, and sometimes seeing it build and sometimes moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think that's so true because actually I'm quite happy where my career is. And sometimes, you know, like my family members will be like, but don't you want to be a huge star? I'm like, well, yeah, of course I would want to. But, and I don't say that to put myself down. It's more, I feel so lucky I get to create work. I could write for myself and write for other people. And I'm writing a book. And I think there's more you can do. And within where I'm at, I get to work with a ton of friends, like you said, and get to be creative. And certainly even doing podcasts now, and even in the last 5 years, has opened up just such a stream of creativity where there's no kind of studio involved or anyone noting any of the creativity. And that's just been kind of a fun, like, recent byproduct or kind of new avenue, I think, of creativity that's being explored. And yeah, so I kind of love the pocket that I'm in. And I love the actresses that I've seen in this area that I've admired for so long.
It's the pocket that no one gets sick of you in, if that makes like
Some might.
Oh.
Everyone in this interview is like, well,
says you, buddy. Right?
I'm
No,
kidding.
I see. Whenever you pop up in a movie like Gone Girl and a show like Mrs. Fletcher, I'm very happy. It feels like
Thank you.
someone knew what they were doing. That's
thank
why
you
you're
so
there,
much.
right? A casting director or a director knew how to cast this show because
thank
you make
you.
scenes better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And I can't, I was watching something last night, and it was the clips of the American Music Awards, right? And I was watching like a clip of Green Day, and that's like the most famous thing in the world. And I was thinking to myself, God, that looks horrible to have to do that. When you're around, I mean, your family says to you, "Don't you wish you were more famous?" Is there a part of you that's
Just
been
one
around?
family member.
Yeah, really. Is there a part of you that's been around super famous people and is like, I don't really want that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I have. I don't think I could like hold up under that. Like I used to have blonde hair and I was like, I can't carry this. I was like, it's too much pressure. People want something out of you that I'm not prepared to deliver.
You're like me with a Halloween costume on. Like halfway through the
Yeah.
night, I'm like, I can't do this. I need to put my clothes on.
Exactly. It's just not an energy I can give. But I kind of love being at least where I'm at, which is like if people have seen Happy Endings, for instance, or shows that they love, they're so generous about it, but I'm certainly not hounded. But it's great. It's anyone that ever kind of at least comes up there so generous and seem to just really
You
like
have
comedy.
good fans. You have
I have good
that are
fans,
like,
I think. Very
I loved you in this show.
normal
You're so great.
fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have fans that are like, hi.
There've been one or two, oddities, but no, everyone's been very great.
Another show that you were in this past year or maybe the previous year is Black Monday.
Yes.
I thought it was so great. I loved the way that show turned a straight up comedy show into a serialized drama.
Yeah.
And I thought what was so interesting about it was so many people tuned in and expected a serialized drama with some comedy. And they were kind of thrown off by the fact that it was, no, this is a comedy.
Yes.
Straightforward, like broad
Hard
comedy.
comedy, yeah.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
serialized drama underneath.
It is a tone that is, I have never seen a show
Neither had I.
attempt nor I think pull off such a different tone, which is that it's about 80s Wall Street and it's about the kind of first black trader. It's fictionalized, but Don Cheadle and Regina Hall, kind of a motley crew of traders and, who kind of started Black Monday, kicked off Black Monday. Yeah. And Andrew Rannell stars as well. And it is just a hard comedy, but it has plot and it has mystery. Yeah. And it's wild.
I think because it's about Wall Street and it's about black traders, people really expected some sort of like hot take seriousness with a little
God,
bit. And it's
no.
like, no, it is straight up dick and fart jokes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
cocaine jokes.
It is. And I think
I loved it for that.
this year, we just filmed season 2, though. It actually even elevates itself out of that territory. And it is just like super, it's definitely hard, funny as well. But they definitely take the plot into some wild places. Like, yeah, it's actually become, it's like quite a sophisticated comedy in a way.
You play
Tiff Georgina,
Georgina.
heir
Yeah,
to
sorry, I
the
couldn't remember
Georgina
if her name
Jean
was-
fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Who's-
Abusive wife of Andrew Rannells.
How did that part come about? Did you know those guys that created it? Because they
So
were on
my
Champagne
husband
Ale.
created it.
Oh, your husband did.
Yes, and,
Oh.
and I know I've just been praising it a lot, but I really do love it. Yeah, my husband David.
I didn't even know that,
Cass,
and I was praising it.
please created it with Jordan Cahan, his childhood friend, and David also created Happy Endings. That's how I met my husband, and yeah, so they wrote this part for me that is just insane and unhinged woman full of rage and anger and just like an 80s bitch is so much fun to play. And it is the things that are happening.
What is it like? I mean, so this is the second or third time you've worked with your husband?
Yeah, third. Yeah.
Third time. And what is it like working with him on set? How do you guys manage it?
It's so great. He's so collaborative and he's so funny, but he's so kind to everyone and he makes everybody feel, really a part of things. And it doesn't feel strange, I think, because we met working, so I don't feel totally like, I'm like, my husband put me in this, But everyone loves it. He's a really great guy, and so is his partner, Jordan. And it's just nice to bring our kids to set, and you barely get to see people when they're on these shows anyway. And so it's just been a special experience to just get to be funny and put all our funny friends in the show. Like Ken Marino's in it too, of course. And
You never get like a direction from him off camera, and you're like, "Oh, is that what you want? Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we're gonna talk about that later then."
of course, I say things that are uncomfortable for everyone to witness.
Everybody around this, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
You're a writer yourself, right? You said you're working on a book. What is the book that you're working on?
I'm writing a book for HarperCollins. It's a book of comedic essays and with some, I think, darker undertones. And yeah, so that'll be out down the way a bit. And yeah, I write with June Diane Raphael, who's been my writing partner since we were like 17.
You were 17?
Yes, we met at NYU.
Wow.
Yeah, we were roommates.
And so you've been friends for a while now. That's
Oh my
crazy.
God, so long. And
Yeah.
yeah, we had a 2-woman sketch show together at UCB. And then we went to, not the
Were
US
you
for
both?
all of this.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Were you
Yeah.
both studying acting at NYU?
We were both at Stella Adler Studio for Acting.
And then you both discovered UCB together at the same time?
So
How
we did
that
a
happen?
2-woman show together, graduating, and then it got moved to UCB. Someone, Owen Burke, the artistic director, saw it and brought us over there. And so we, just performed there. And
Were
that's
you
kind
already
of-
doing comedy?
No, we had never. We were like the actors that came to sketch comedy, and we're such dorks, like warming up in the hallways. And everyone else is like, just put your show up. Like, I was like, I need a second. And, but so then that's how we started UCB. We got into that world. That's how June met Paul and Paul Scheer, her husband, who's also on Black Monday, one of the leads of it. And yeah, from there, and then we wrote Bride Wars, the movie together, and just have written together ever since. June is on Grace and Frankie. She plays the daughter, Brianna.
And you are a sort of regular, maybe the most featured member on their podcast, How Did This Get Made, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I've been on a few times, yeah. There's been some heated discussions.
About who was the most? Who has
No,
been on the
about
most? Oh.
just the movies themselves.
What has been the most heated movie that you've discussed?
Well, Drop Dead Fred. I don't
Right.
know if anyone has seen that. Someone's clapping, okay.
She is not a fan of Drop Dead Fred if you've listened to the episode.
There's an episode of How Did This Get Made where we scream. You might not want to. We scream from the moment we start to the moment we stopped to the point that I told you I popped a blood vessel on my vocal cord. And I'm still getting voice therapy at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in LA since this happened. And because it was such a passionate fight. Paul Scheer and I hated the movie. Jason Mantzoukas and June Raphael loved the movie. See for yourself, guys.
But didn't you, when you popped the blood vessel,
Yep.
did you feel it there in the moment?
I
don't
thought
remember.
something's very wrong, but I didn't know if I just felt it was the movie was very wrong.
Did you say something during the podcast?
I said something to myself, which was like,
okay.
why are you risking yourself and health for this podcast? But so every time I go, I take a photo and show them like still here, still healing from that one night.
And how do you and June?
I'm dedicated to my art.
How do you and June still write together after all these years? What is your process like with each other?
Well, we've written pilots and movies and various things, and she just wrote an amazing book called Represent, The Female's Guide to Running for Office. And so we kind of write when we can, and we're just trying to create a movie for ourselves together and pass it back and forth. And we've never lived more than 5 blocks away from each other since NYU, so we are always in each other's lives.
Are you guys, would you say best friends, basically?
Oh my gosh, yes.
She's like your sister
Like
at
my
this
life
point.
partner, yes.
Do you ever argue or fight about what you're writing about with each other? Or is
Yeah.
it basically simpatico and you guys are...
Oh, of course. We're both very strong personalities, but it's always with love and great respect. But yeah, we're like sisters. We've just been through it all. We made an independent film together and called Ass Backwards. And if you can make an independent film with a human and remain even in the same room with them after, I think that's a strong friendship.
Was that a tough shoot?
Yeah. The producer tried to fight me physically, and
No.
June had to hold me back. Yeah, like
Wait, tell that
these
story,
things are not for
please.
the faint of heart.
No, of course. Shooting like a low-budget movie is incredibly
Shooting
difficult.
a low-budget movie. We just didn't
Every
have
day
any
is
money.
compromise.
Every day was hell. Like, didn't have any money, didn't have time. There were some financial issues. The 4 days before finishing, the movie shut down.
Right. The money fell out?
Money fell out. We had 4 days left. We had Bob Odenkirk and okay, I'll get back to that because I'm blanking on a name. We had Bob
Called
Odenkirk.
in all your favors, right?
Every single favor. We had Bob Odenkirk was out there with us the day we shut down. We'd flown him out. So we did not finish the movie for 2 years, but then it did get into Sundance, so we were very excited. But we had to piece together the financing and recreate the set. It was a pageant scene that we stopped in the middle of, so we had to call girls we don't even know 2 years later and say like, hey, could you in your dress come downtown? And some of them would be like, oh, I'm out of town. We're like, could your dress come? Can we put it on someone?
Can I ask, because, and maybe this is like too heavy to have to relive, but that period between shutting it down and then 2 years later picking it back up, what did that feel like? I mean, people have a hard time when they finish shooting and they see a rough cut of their movie. They have trouble going forward.
It was honestly, it was devastating, and only because we'd put so much of our energy, our lives, our money. I put like the small bit of money my mom had left me when she passed, and not to be dark, but we put everything into this movie, and so then for it to shut down, it kind of put our creative lives, obviously there's way worse things in the world, I'm just simply, from a creative standpoint, kind of put our lives on a pause of just like, all we have to do is finish this movie. It was all, and then when you see it.
Did it take you time to find that, that invigoration to finish the movie, or did you know right away?
We always had it. I mean,
Yeah.
we were going out to, like, at one point, we were in, like, Russian mobsters' houses begging for money. We went out to an energy drink kingpin's house to try to get money. Like, things were happening where we were just, like, at all points, like, we're going to finish the movie. And so when it did get into Sundance, it was a huge deal for us. But I walk into a convenience store, like 20 pounds overweight, and then I leave, like, 20 pounds lighter. Like, there's some weird stuff because it was a 2-year time jump.
Wow. And how did you get into a fight with the producer, though? I am curious
Oh,
about that.
God. There was just some issue about, like, music licensing, and we just shot this whole thing, and when we walked out, someone said, I don't know if we'd had that song cleared. I won't take you through but, like, we're losing light, the machinations, and I was
No, but that is actually
quite upset.
I hate to ask, take me through that, because sometimes I feel like people don't understand what actually happens on these sets, and they hear the triumphs and they hear maybe like, oh, it was a hard shoot, but what actually entails a hard shoot and the making of an independent film is so heart-wrenching at times, and people don't understand the risk and the gamble people put forward on
It
these
is
things.
it's truly the most difficult thing. Like, it was more difficult than being on Saturday Night Live. Like, it was the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And just, you have no money. There's problems that are so insurmountable at every turn, and so, yeah, the producer, who I actually really love, and she's lovely, but I was yelling, and she tried to fight me, and that's how it happened. And June was like, I'm gonna have to hold my friend back here. We're gonna have a physical fight, and June's dragging me away. But then 2 seconds later, we have to keep shooting.
Yeah.
Like, we have Vincent D'Onofrio out there, and just pretend everything's fine. And we did not have
Hey, Vincent.
the best. So we don't have trailers. We have no holding. And Vincent D'Onofrio has generously gone upstate to be in our movie, and we're shooting in a trailer park. And I just, like, knock on a woman's door, and I'm like, hey, could Vincent D'Onofrio just hang out with you all day and, like, kind of use your trailer? And She said yes. He goes there. She is like, has thousands of Law and Order DVDs. She ended up being this like psycho super fan. So I've stuck him in a trailer with this woman, and he was like, it's just, I was surrounded by DVDs. And, and these are the types of things, he was very gracious. He answered all her many questions.
Right, you guys are all shooting, and he's sitting in this trailer looking around.
Yeah, with like misery happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congrats. I mean, I know it was a long time ago, but congrats on getting the
Thank
movie
you.
done.
It's called Ass Backwards, and it's out, and it's actually like, it is a broader, kind of in the style of like a Will Ferrell, like a Step Brothers, which is also a challenge to do what should be kind of a big budget
Yeah.
movie is a small budget.
You need time to actually.
Yeah, and just comedically for two women to be the leads in these like broad, big characters, I think was hard for people.
Did you
to
and
wrap
June
their
direct it
heads
as well?
around. No, Chris Nelson directed it.
Oh, okay.
We just wrote it and starred in it.
Can I ask, how did Bob respond to everything getting shut down while he was on set?
It was horrifying. He responded as anyone can. He was graceful and then flew himself back out later, as did John Cryer. John Cryer had to flew out, coach middle seat for us on like an overnight flight, the second leg when we needed him again. I mean, he's a hero. He's an angel.
Now, after all of that, would you do it again?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And what do you think it is about your brain that, like, what's wrong with your brain that you would go through a hell like that to do it again?
I don't know. I think that's all artists. You just,
Yeah.
everyone works, and true in life too. You work so hard, and when you really boil it down to like, how many moments of joy did I really get this year out of this thing that I love and work around so much? And maybe it's, June and I said, maybe it was like half an hour of joy for this 5-year process. But that's a love of art.
That joy was worth, that half an hour of joy was worth.
Me almost getting punched, and thank God I didn't. I would have had to go back in hair and makeup. We didn't have that kind of time.
We have time for a couple questions from the audience. Who has a question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, so Miss Fletcher is kind of about, it circles finding your sexuality and your sexual desires. And I was wondering, why do you think it's important to actually talk about that stuff in movies and TV?
Thank you for that. I mean, I think it's important to mainly start getting different viewpoints on these things. I think we've seen a lot of the same kind of like viewpoint for a long time, and this viewpoint to me is interesting because it's a mom who's an empty nester. She's older in that time of life where we think like, oh, life is over, and her kids go to college, and her son, and she actually kind of dabbles and becomes slightly, I don't want to say addicted to, but porn becomes a huge part of her life. But to me, that's an interesting story. It's like your life's not over. New things are happening. And I like this. It's kind of a smaller story in a great way of just a woman's sexuality and what happens after we think like your kids are gone. Now you're just going to like sit there and do nothing. And so to me, that's like someone's story we haven't heard.
I also will say I liked the something that I had never seen was the husband's take, your character's husband's take on what he was doing as a much more matter of fact, not as salacious as people like to make it out to be.
No.
Yeah, it was like a weird defense of himself that I actually kind of bought. I was sort of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's a very like kind of cut and dry, like at least our marriage. It's like, yeah, this is a suburban marriage and it's pretty like cut and dry. But I think this story is not one that I have seen before, and which are the stories that I'm wanting to watch now from like different voices, different people. And I think this is one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question?
Hi.
Hi.
I had a question about your relationship with pressure, like as your career has gone on. Like, are you the type of artist who has boxes that you for sure want to have checked, or do you try to take it day by day, or like what is that? How has that changed?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Thank you. I am definitely very goal oriented in a way that's a little scary. No, I've always kind of tried to have overarching goals and shift them and hopefully try to push past anything if I have achieved it, and some things I haven't, obviously. But I try to get very specific with goals because somehow I find they happen more, not to get like the secret on everyone, but just to get pretty specific about what I want to do. And yeah, and I kind of try to push myself pretty hard and keep a lot of things going just as an artist, because I think that's the only way maybe something will hit. But I like a little pressure, and I think anyone probably as an artist, you kind of thrive under that.
Goal. I mean, having a goal, having deadlines, of course. Otherwise, you can just kind of, because the hardest thing is to actually do the work.
It's so hard. I know.
It's so hard to be
I
like,
employ a myriad of ways to try to keep working, and yeah.
I'm going to put this away so that tomorrow I don't look at this, and I'm going to do this, this, and that, so I don't have to.
It's so hard to work for yourself, and especially with writing, or to find the time to kind of tune everything else out and make your own like priorities. And I think that's very difficult.
How do you do that with writing?
So I actually do something. It's called Cave Day. It's an organization I found randomly. Like I'm not affiliated with them.
Do tell.
And it's a writing. It's a place for deep work. It's hard to describe, but they have it in New York and LA, or virtually, which I do twice a week. And you go into this virtual platform with people all over the world, and they do these deep work sprints. So the idea is that you get into like deep focused work, and it's about 4 hours. And then you take little breaks, but you put your phone away. And there is something like with meditation, when people are working together, you just drop down deeper. Yeah. And the idea is like you monotask. So you're not doing all your emails and this and that. And it's kind of like for fitness class, like you're going to do better if someone's instructing you. And sadly, it's helped me with just work, with writing. Yeah, so I join and I have it like clockwork. I sit there and I just drop into work, and you do these work sprints. And everybody that does it is like amazed at how much more you can actually get done.
It's called Cave.
Cave, C-A-V-E, like you go into the cave.
Yeah.
Because in this world, there's so many distractions.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about just kind of like prioritizing your own work, not the stuff that we can easily do, like the shallow work.
Or when writing as well, though, like the hardest part about writing is that you want to distract yourself.
Of course.
You start and you're like, this is going well. I'll look at my phone.
But this thing is like, just do it. And then you can drop down for some reason into kind of like a state of flow when others are doing it too. And it kind of keeps you accountable. I mean, it's weird. Like you're typing and you see like 20 other people, but no one's really watching you. You're just like, yeah. But they have in-person sessions are incredible too. So that has helped me with my book tremendously.
Right. I'm going to look into this. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, just a thought, guys.
Mrs. Fletcher is currently on HBO, right?
On Sunday nights.
Sunday nights. It's such a wonderful show.
Oh, I
Congratulations.
love the show, and I hope everyone watches. It's
And I
truly
know
wonderful.
it's a limited series, but I kind of hope that they do a second season.
Me too.
Because
Me too.
where it ends up, I really want to see what happens with that
Me too.
relationship. I
Me
can't
too.
really give it away, but
Yeah. It gets a little crazy.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, really.
Casey Wilson, everybody.
Thank
Let's
you
hear
all
it.
so much.